Hola estudiantes, in this video we are going to learn about making comparisons and what kind of words that we use in Spanish to make our comparisons. So a little bit of background and prior knowledge of things that you should already know, because we are going to be using adjectives when we make comparisons, that you should know that an adjective is a word that we use to describe something. Some examples: grande, pequeño, rica, deliciosos. You know that when you use an adjective, you need to make sure that the adjective agrees with whatever it's describing. So, for example, if I was going to talk about cookies being tasty, I would have to say las galletas son ricas. Ricas is feminine and plural because I'm talking about las galletas, which is also feminine and plural. Okay, so if I was going to describe myself at any point, I would use feminine endings because I'm a girl, but if my noun is masculine or feminine, even if I'm not talking about humans, then we can make sure that our adjectives agree with whatever noun we describe. Okay, so when we start out with our comparisons, we're going to start with comparisons that use adjectives. We have más plus an adjective plus que, menos plus an adjective plus que, and tan plus an adjective plus como. I'm going to go over each of these types and give you some examples, and I will expect that you will also be creating your own examples, which I will check when I look over your notes from class, or during class. Okay, so starting with más plus an adjective plus que, this is what we use to say more something than, okay? So the something is just going to be whatever it is that we're describing. So, for example, I might say, las galletas son más ricas que el helado. Now, please notice that I've made my adjective again agree. Ricas is going to agree with las galletas. It's always going to agree with the first noun that's in the sentence, not the second one. Okay? Another example, mi abuela es más artística que yo. Again, because abuela is feminine, I want to make it artística, saying my grandma is more artistic than me. And you guys know lots of adjectives at this point, so there's many things you could use this comparison for. And also, mostly when we're describing, we're going to use ser as our verb, which is a verb that many of you are very comfortable with. So, for your practice sentence with más plus an adjective plus que, I would like you to make a comparison between you and your mom. So your sentence should start with yourself and compare yourself to your mom. Go ahead and pause the video right now to write a comparison between you and your mom, and please make sure you're using different adjectives than what I have on my board. All right, once you're done with that, move on to menos plus an adjective plus que, which is less something than. So basically for both of these, I've just taken my other sentences and flipped them. So instead of saying more than, I'm going to say less. So for this first one, el helado es menos rico que las galletas. Okay, so here I'm saying ice cream is less tasty than cookies, whereas before I said cookies are more tasty than ice cream. My other one, yo soy menos artística que mi abuela. I am less artistic than my grandma. Okay, so when you make yours, I want you to compare your sibling or cousin if you don't have any siblings and your dad. And again, please try to use adjectives other than the ones that you used in your first sentences. Please try to change up your sentences each time. So please take a minute to write a sentence comparing a sibling and your dad. All right, our third comparison that uses adjectives is a comparison of equality. The other two are comparisons of inequality, where we're saying that two things are not equal. Tan plus an adjective plus como is a comparison of equality because I'm saying that two things are the same. Okay, as something, as is what we would say in English. So for example, I might say Mrs. Miller is as short as many students, which is a very true fact. And if I was going to say that in Spanish, I would say, Señora Miller es tan baja como muchos estudiantes. Please note that this comparative uses como as the second word and not que. Okay, we've got the first two that use más que and menos que, but when we're saying that something is equal, then we are going to use como. Okay, so for this comparison, I want you to compare you and your best friend. Okay, you can put either of you as the subject. You could say your best friend is the subject or you're the subject. But whichever one it is, please make sure that your adjective agrees with whomever the first person in the sentence is. And I've given you'd say mi mejor amigo or mi mejor amiga when you say my best friend. So please take a moment to write that sentence, that practice sentence in your notes now. All right. Moving on to the other type of comparisons that we have. We have some comparisons that don't use adjectives, okay? And this is pretty much just for any other time we want to compare. We have más que, which is more than, menos que is less than, and tanto como, which is as much as. You can see the similarities between these and the comparisons with adjectives. Okay, this time though, the words are going to be together. Okay, we're not going to separate them with anything in between. And also notice that it's tanto and not tan for the comparison of equality for as much as. All right, so starting with más que, we could say more than. So for example, I might say, I eat salads more than cake. Okay, here I've used a verb saying I eat something, I eat salads, okay, so I'm comparing how much I eat salads to how much I eat cake, and that's using a verb and then additionally nouns. Okay, so yo como las ensaladas más que el pastel. Just more than. This is really exactly the same as the English sentence would be. Another example, Lily likes Halloween more than her birthday. We can use this with gustar. A Lily le gusta Halloween más que su cumpleaños, more than her birthday. So for this practice, please, I'm going to let you choose, okay, so come up with your own idea for what you are going to compare. Something more than something else. It could be anything. You can think about different verbs. Okay, just make sure that it's not the same as the examples that I've done and not the same as any of the other ones that you've done for earlier sentences. So take a moment to do that. Pause it. For the next one, menos que is less than. Okay, for example, yo hablo menos que escucho. I talk less than I listen, something for all of us to strive to do. So for your practice example, for menos que, for less than, I would like you to compare something with parents and children. Okay, so you can think about so many different possibilities with comparing things that parents do with things that children do, things that your parents do less than, or something that you do less than them. Okay, there's so many things that you could probably think of to compare with parents and children. So please write your sentence, your practice sentence for this one, with parents and children as your comparison. All right, and for the last one, we have tanto como, which is as much as. Again, this is a comparison of equality, saying that two things are equal. So in this first example, I said Bob plays the guitar as much as his dad watches TV. So for the Spanish, Bob toca la guitarra tanto como su padre mira la televisión. Okay, here I've used tanto como, and there doesn't really need to be any focus on agreement for these ones because we're not using adjectives. Okay, so for your practice for this one, please just go ahead and choose your own type of sentence that you want to say. Anything with as much as that you can think of that you can say in Spanish, go ahead and write a comparison for those two things. And go ahead and pause it and then come back to the video in a sec. All right. For our last little bit here, we have some adducts, as in some irregular comparatives. Okay, these are ones that don't quite fit the mold like the other ones do. They don't follow a pattern. The first one is the word mayor, which means older, and you know that because that's one of your vocab words. So for example, I could say, Señora Miller es mayor que yo. Mrs. Miller is older than me. You don't always have to have que when you use these. That's why que isn't part of the word. Okay? I could just say Mrs. Miller is older, period, and then it would be Señora Miller es mayor. Okay, so sometimes though we might want to use older than or younger than, and that's when we would use que. The second one is menor, which is younger. I would say here, los estudiantes son menores que Señora Miller. Now, hopefully what you notice about this example is that I've changed the ending on my word to menores. Why do you think that is? Well, it's because I have to make this agree with the subject of the sentence, which in this case is los estudiantes. So for all of these irregular comparisons, if I'm talking about a plural subject, I have to make the comparative plural. So if it was a plural subject here, it would be mayores. Menores would be the plural for younger. The next one, mejor, means better, and that would be mejores. And then peor is worse, which would be peores. Okay, so for mejor, for better, yo canto mejor que mi esposo. I sing better than my husband. And then my next sentence, I tried to use one where I didn't use que. Él es bueno, pero yo soy mejor. He's good, but I'm better. Okay, so that's an example where we're not using que. And then for the last one, for peor, I said las hamburguesas son peores que las ensaladas. Notice that all these, for them, since they end in consonants, I'm just adding es. I don't have to worry about gender. I'm just thinking about the number of the subject. And in this case, since my subject is hamburgers, and hamburgers is plural, then you're going to make the word worse plural. All right. So for your last practices, I want you to pick one of either older or younger and either better or worse, and I want you to write a sentence that uses that, and you can choose, but please again don't use the exact same people or examples that I used here. If you have any questions, please write them down in your notes and feel free to bring them up when we go over this in class. Or you can send me an email and I'll try to get to it as soon as possible. Gracias y adios.